All In Sports Network. We love sports.
The Aggies have their quarterback in the transfer portal, at least to serve as a backup. We're talking about Jacob Zeno from UAB, previously of Baylor, joining Texas A&M, committing to be the first portal addition for Mike Elko in this recruiting cycle. All In Aggies, Ben Peck here, part of the Rogue Sports Media Network. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And we've got a jam-packed show for you. We're going to talk a little bit about Zeno. We're going to then touch on some volleyball and women's golf action. Exciting developments for both of those. But first, we'll get to the main headliner of today. Jacob Zeno announcing his commitment to Texas A&M. He will be coming in as a 7th year senior grad student. If you're wondering how the maths in this situation, 2019 at Baylor, he was a legit, true freshman redshirted. Then 2020 at Baylor, we act like that season didn't happen for eligibility purposes, COVID. Then 2021, he's a redshirt freshman. And then you go all the way up to 2022, 2023, 2024. By the way, went to UAB in 2022. 2024, played 4 games, season-ending injury, and then was granted a waiver to play in a 7th season this upcoming year. He'll be coming into a quarterback room that needed some depth. Marcel Reed is there. He is solid. He is good. But beyond him, you've got Miles O'Neill. You've got some true freshmen coming in. And you lost Jalen Henderson. You lost Connor Wigman, of course. So you needed some sort of veteran presence to stabilize this. Want to get to this discussion point I saw going around on Aggie Twitter and other forums. Is Jacob Zeno potentially being brought in? Like, does he have a legitimate chance to sort of compete for the job with Connor Wigman? I'm in 2023 mode. With Marcel Reed. I say yes and no. I think in the same sense that Connor Wigman was in a competition to win the starting job heading into this year, I think we all knew that it would be Connor Wigman, but I do think there was a competition that was allowed to be had with Wigman coming off the injury and everything else. And, you see how things play out. I do think there's a world, it would surprise me, but I do think what we'll probably see is like Marcel Reed goes in as the presumed starter for all of us, and he likely will be. But I would not be surprised throughout the offseason if we kind of hear the messaging that, hey, Marcel and Jacob are going back and forth to see who is going to be the guy. Again, I think it's going to be Marcel. I'm not trying to stir up unnecessary drama, but I do think Jacob Zeno has enough experience and has done well enough to at least warrant a legitimate look to see if maybe he could, give it a go. I'll put it this way, too. I think he's basically kind of what you had with Jalen Henderson in terms of the experienced backup who can take over if need be, but he's definitely a much more proven commodity than Jalen was at that point coming in last year or 2 years ago. So I think that's a step up in some sense. He's got his own injury concerns, battling back from it, season-ending injury, as we just mentioned. But I think Jacob Zeno, and also he had a moment that, if you probably have seen it, filled in the Big 12 championship game for Baylor for like a play, a few plays, and threw a long touchdown pass in a Big 12 championship game. So he's played in big moments. But yeah, I think Marcel's going to be your guy. Jacob's going to be a solid backup, kind of like a Max Johnson vibe, to where Max could have maybe beaten out Haynes King coming back from injury. And then you had Connor as the insurgent, and Max got the backup job. I think in this sense, it's not obviously Marcel's not coming back from injury, but I do think you look at it and you say, okay, well, Marcel, he's young, and I think he's not a transfer risk is kind of my biggest thing. Like, I think he's cool, calm, collected. So if you really did feel like, wow, like we brought Jacob in to be kind of some depth and to give us an option, and all of a sudden we feel pretty good, maybe. I would be very surprised if that happened. But I do think he'll kind of at least have the opportunity to see what he can do. Just some of his numbers real quick. Again, he got limited action this past year in 4 games, 819 yards, 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions at UAB. Really, he had the one season where he was the starter in 2023, 3,100 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, 9 picks. I think he ran for 4 more on the ground. So those are solid numbers. Now, it's UAB. It's the American now. I don't even know where they were before. I don't know if they were still Conference USA 2023. But, I mean, dual threat, can make plays with his legs a little bit. Big frame. We'll see how he does. I think, but nonetheless, it was a needed position to secure because, again, beyond Marcel Reed, you didn't have much. And Marcel, I think I'm less worried about his inconsistency at times, but more so, he talked about it. He's got to get his frame bigger and stronger to be able to take more hits and to be able to kind of, I guess, put his body on the line to make plays with his legs and to do all that. And to have that accumulate over the course of the season to be able to stay strong. So he's going to look to bulk up. That's something that I think in terms of his durability, it's nice to be able to have because he's not like the hugest guy in the world. It's nice to have a guy that you can rely on to go to if need be. So that's the big splash for Tuesday. A&M lands the former Baylor and most recently UAB quarterback Jacob Zeno out of San Antonio, Texas, the 7th-year senior into the program. All right, going to move along here. If you haven't already, by the way, like the video and subscribe if you enjoy the show. We are getting back into the flow of things after I had to deal with some stuff, but we've tried to cover everything going on across campus, all the big stories, and we're going to be touching more on some men's basketball as they get ready to take on Purdue later on this week. But until then, be sure to check us out, and we'll keep it going. All right, now we're going to look at volleyball. Going to the Sweet 16 for the first time, I believe, in 5 years. The Aggies are in the Sweet 16 after defeating Colorado State 3-1, then upsetting Arizona State 3-1 at Arizona State. So now they go into the Sweet 16, the regional site in Lincoln, Nebraska. They get to take on Wisconsin. Before we get to that matchup, just want to hand the floor over to volleyball head coach Jamie Morrison in his 2nd year now. Keep in mind, this is a team that last year, played against Texas, I believe, in the 2nd round of the tournament. They won a set over Texas, who, of course, went on to win the national championship in a year 1 situation. And now, year 2, 21-7. They finished 10-6 in the SEC, 10-3 at home. And they are going to, again, Sweet 16 taking on Wisconsin. But this is Jamie Morrison kind of talking about the big picture at this point into year 2.
I talk a lot about vision. I talk about vision for the program, and one of the things that I have when I came here was restoring this program back to the place that it's been, and that's a consistent Sweet 16 team, and then take it further. And to do that in year 2 is an amazing feat. I'm proud of our staff. I'm proud of our players. It's a combination of all of this. It's a lot of hard work that's been put into developing human beings and volleyball players that are here. It's understanding that this is a long-term build, that we want to build this thing into something beyond what it even was then. And that's a program that's consistently in the Final Four. And I think this is pointing to the fact that we're headed in that direction.
So certainly appears, it's certainly trending in a positive direction. Again, A&M, they've won their last 6 matches after they hit a snag mid-season where they lost, I believe, 3 in a row to Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Tennessee. And now they are going, as I said, to Lincoln to take on Wisconsin in the Sweet 16, and then Lincoln. Yes, you do have Nebraska looming in the Elite Eight. Potentially, Nebraska has to play Dayton, who upset Baylor 3-2 in a close match to work their way into the Sweet 16. And I want to touch on Wisconsin real quick. Just the big thing that stands out here is these two teams played each other early in the year. A&M, I believe, was undefeated going into that match. Yeah, they were undefeated. They had also defeated Baylor 3-1 in a scrimmage for whatever that was worth. And the Wisconsin weekend was really that match was their first real chance to prove themselves. They had Wisconsin at Wisconsin on a Saturday in September. And then after a win over Troy, they played Texas at home that next Friday. They lost 3-1 to Texas, 3-0 to Wisconsin in that matchup in September. But things have changed according to SEC Offensive Player of the Year, Logan Lednicki. This is what she said about how different they are playing now compared to then.
I think we're playing a lot better volleyball than we were against Wisconsin back in preseason. I'd say more dynamic. We're extending rallies like longer and longer, making calm, simple touches. We're funneling the ball back to our defense pretty well with our block setups. And so, I think just all around, like every single player has added some stuff to their skill set since we played Wisconsin last.
So there you go. They have gotten better. Another thing on that Wisconsin match, that second set was 30-28. That second set was wild. They had A&M had a hitting percentage of 385 and Wisconsin was 500. So they were going crazy. Much more of a kind of sluggish game for the rest of the match. They lost the first set, if you're curious, 25-18. The third set, 25-19. Wisconsin out hitting A&M by a healthy margin in those times, but still under 300 hit percentage in both of those sets for Wisconsin. So, I mean, it's going to take, if you can combine the offensive firepower that we have seen, not just in the tournament, but throughout the year from ladies like Logan Lednicki, Emily Helmuth, and combine that with the defensive prowess, or at least being able to slow down Wisconsin like you were in some of those other sets in that match, then, anything can happen. It is going to be a neutral site. You would imagine that helps a little bit. Although, again, you do have Nebraska potentially looming in the Elite Eight if you get there. One step at a time, though, and this is a chance to get as far as A&M has ever gone in the tournament in the Elite Eight. We wish those ladies well. Game time information on that is going to be Friday, 6 p.m. in Lincoln, against Wisconsin. A&M the 6th seed in the region, while Wisconsin is the 2, and then the 1-5 matchup on the other side, Nebraska taking on Dayton. All right, quick show here tonight. But again, if you haven't already, subscribe, tell a friend, and share a video if you enjoyed so much. Now, want to give a final tip of the cap to the newest member, one of the newest members of the LPGA Tour. That would be Texas A&M women's golf alum Adela Cernousek, the national champion, the individual national champion from earlier this year, spring 2024. Adela goes through the LPGA Q School qualifying tour series, I should say. She wins the initial qualifying portion of it. Then in November, there's a deadline. If you want to play this final stage to actually make it into the LPGA Tour, about 125 ladies, some of them, from the Epson Tour, that they've been playing in that to get themselves in a position to do this. If you make the top 25, you go on to the LPGA Tour. The decision Adela had to make is if you compete in this portion, you give up your amateur status, if you will. And so she decided November, she is going to turn professional and go to this final series in hopes of making the LPGA Tour this coming spring and basically competing immediately as a professional. And she does it. 2 under for the tournament, 2 under in her final round, 11 under over 5 rounds for the tournament. The cut line was 6 under. You needed to be 6 under or better to be tied for 24th. And that was, so she cleared it pretty easily. The remarkable thing to me is she started off 75 and then 71 after that. She was, after that first round I checked, she was fairly low on the leaderboard, but sticks with it. Oh, and by the way, she takes home a nice purse prize of a couple $1,000, 28, 23. So that's a nice little Christmas bonus for Miss Cernousek. And you get to play in the LPGA Tour. Adela, one of the most storied players in the program. This is not from the tour or from the Q School qualifying series. It's just some highlights of her through the years that we've been able to capture on television, because that's unfortunately pretty much the best time we have to get any highlights from any of these ladies. But Adela, very storied career, Texas A&M, national champion, distinguished in that right within the program, a part of 3 consecutive teams that made the Elite Eight, 2 trips to the Final Four in the first 2 years under head coach Garrett Chadwell. So now she is going to be doing big things on the LPGA Tour. Keep an eye out for her in the spring. There we go. That is some real footage we have from her doing her thing at Texas A&M. All right, so congratulations to her. By the way, you had 3 other Aggies in that competition. I will say all of them made it through the initial cut. So there was one cut where you had to be, I think the first cut, there's the 125 or so. And then I think to make this final round, you had to be, I want to say top 60 after the first 4 rounds. And all 4 Aggies made it through that portion. So Maddie Zurich, she made it through there. She finishes +2. So she was 8 shots off the final mark you needed. And then Haley Cooper was 1 over. She was a part of that core team that we talk about with all those trips to the Final Four and the Elite Eight. She was part of that with Coach Garrett Chadwell. And then Blanca Fernandez Garcia Pogio there from the beginning as well. She only finished 3 shots off the mark to make it to the LPGA Tour. So 3 shots over 5 rounds away from making the LPGA Tour. So I know Zoe Slaughter is starting up a similar qualifying tournament this week, trying to make her next tour destination. She's been a big part of the team. And long story short, really excited for these Aggies and the program, as they seem to be trending in a way to get multiple names on these professional tours, which, to be honest, for me is kind of that's the ultimate payoff, I think, if you want to follow these programs. I understand, like, the team competition is amazing, and I think it's one of the most underrated team sports in college. Like, the match play, once you get to the championships, is electric if you ever follow it. But beyond that, realistically, I think the cool thing is to be able to see, men's, women's, tennis, golfers, swimmers, whatever, track athletes go on to perform at the professional ranks, dominate their respective sports, and then say, hey, they started at Texas A&M. So Adela certainly seems like she's on her way to being that, and we congratulate her here on the All In Aggies YouTube channel. That's all the time we got for you tonight. Again, kind of a quick show, but big news: Jacob Zeno, quarterback, committed to Texas A&M out of the transfer portal, and then volleyball with that big Sweet 16 matchup this weekend. And then congratulations, Adela Cernousek. Subscribe if you enjoyed this. Again, just want to kind of keep it condensed for you guys and let you chew over some various topics in Aggie land today. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you back here next time.
All In Sports Network. We love sports.